Right, thanks a lot for joining our small indie session today. I'm Robert from Active Gaming Media, and I have been part of the Playism team since the beginning. And for all the people who don't know what Playism is, I'm going to talk about it a little bit later on again as well. But Playism is an indie distribution platform in Japan. We bring over games from the West to Japan as well as Japanese indie games to the West, and we try to bridge both cultures, basically. Today, I'd like to talk about, or I'd like to answer 4 questions. One is, how does the indie game scene in Japan actually look like, and what's different to the West? Second, what is actually Playism? What are we doing? How are we involved in the indie game scene in Japan? And how do popular titles actually look like in Japan? What kind of game would you need to have success there? And the last question, since we had the Casual Connect, are there actually possibilities to have an indie game be casually successful? So to answer the first question, to go right into the first question, does anyone know any games from Japan, any indie games from Japan? Do you know any indie games that have been successful in Japan? Probably not so many, and probably players in Japan don't know much about indie games as well. Why is that? Because actually there is no indie game scene in Japan, at least up till now, up till recent years, there was no real, no communication between developers, for example. There were no meetups between developers. There's no real player community that actually talks about indie games, or even people who could be interested in indie games. There's no real media support, at least not as you know it in the West. In the West, you have, for example, indiegames.com as a very popular blog and talking about reviews, having previews of titles, talking about things that are going on in the indie game industry, and you don't have that in Japan. You don't even have real organized industry support. Like, for example, in the West, you have, of course, the Indiecade, you have the Independent Game Festival with every year at the Moscow Center at the GDC, a big show where lots of really unique, nice games, indie games, are being nominated and awarded. Okay, you have the Tokyo Game Show, and you have the Sense of Wonder Night, but that's about it. So there's not much really going on in Japan, and a part of that, you have, for example, in the West, we have Kickstarter. So indie developers try to reach out to the community, not only getting a funding for their game, but also to communicate their game ideas. And Japanese developers, they don't really do that. They probably don't even know that Kickstarter is existing. So that's a big problem. And a part of that, the distribution. I have it here on the slide on the last point. There's up till now, before Playism, there was probably no real distribution channel. You have Steam that is there, but the player numbers are probably quite low. And Steam is not really being active there. So that's probably the main reason probably is the difference in the playing culture. While in the West you have people see the PC not only as a workstation as in Japan, they also use it for gaming. And of course, I can buy a very unique, nice, great indie title for low cost, buy even bundles. So people do that, of course. They see the difference between a big major title and the indie games. The price value is completely different. And Japanese people don't see the PC as a gaming platform. So of course, no communication is going on here. So still, there's actually something else. Not only the indie game scene is growing in Japan, but actually you have something that is anyway bigger. You could think that there's no indie game scene, but the doujin game scene is actually quite older than the indie game scene in the West. So actually there is something, and there are developers creating great games. The doujin games are actually coming from manga and animes, and you have lots of developers. I would call them bedroom developers who create games with an anime manga style look. They create everything. They do the artwork of the books themselves. They print the CDs. And actually, since there's no real distribution, at least so far, they have been going to events like the Comic and the Tokyo Game Show to distribute the games there. And it happened 20 years ago, and they're still doing it like this. So there has been no real involvement, not like in the West. To give you a small overview of what kind of games are actually popular, at least from the Dojin part, here are some very popular titles. For example, the Toho Project, Kamui. You may know Higurashi. You may know Cave Story. These are very popular original Dojin games that actually made some impact in the West as well. So, for example, the bullet hell or the shoot 'em up games are something very, very Japanese. I have seen some similar games here at Casual Connect, actually, and I'm happy to see this, that other developers, not only Japanese developers, create this kind of games. But a part of this, for example, the Higurashi is a series, a very Japanese thing, a visual novel. So again, not much gameplay is going on here. It's just a few clicks, things you can decide to keep on the story. So these are, same again here, like 2D fighting games or fighting games overall. There are tons of Dojin games like having this kind of fighting games, and they are popular. They created their own kind of niche culture, and in the end they had an influence on the way how games have been designed, are still being designed in Japan. So you see there are certain types of games that are popular. You see that still you have developers who create great games, but you have this lack of community support. You don't have this indie community as in the West. So how is Playism involved in here? Well, the first thing, Playism, as I mentioned, is a distribution platform. So I think the distribution is a very important thing that made some changes in the indie game industry in Japan. So actually what we tried to do is like show the players out there, people who own a PC, people who play PC games, hey, check out this really great Western game. It's very unique. You haven't seen that before. Why don't you try it out? And not only distributing games, but also trying to, I should mention that as well. So we have, up to now we have around 200 games. So we have been getting more and more games from the West. We also have been getting more and more Japanese games for the Western side. And well, you can see some growth numbers here. We're still having lots of contents, and our fans, of course, are craving for that. But what I wanted to say is not only distributing the games is an important thing, but of course market them as well. So what we are trying to do is not only hook the indie games up with the media, so we're working very closely, and we have been established a good relationship with media, for example, 4Game or Inside Games in Japan. We're trying to be very active towards to the player community on all the social networks, like social networks such as Facebook, Nico Nico, which is like that YouTube channel in Japan, or Ni channel as well, which is a very Japanese social network. And we have been trying to get more awareness in the indie and Dojin developer community. So for example, we have hooked up with Q Games and Sony for the Bit Summit. Some people of you may have heard about the Bit Summit. It's basically an indie show that tries to get more awareness for indie games and for developers. And the response was great. So last year was the first show. We had 45 developers, 200 attendees, different sort of speakers, and this year it grew to more than double, triple actually for the developer side, and lots of attendees. And we are going to continue next year. So please, if you have time, if you come, then please come to the Bit Summit next year. So that's actually what we're trying to do, and what we are trying to support more and more, like having more awareness in the indie game industry in Japan. Since we don't have so much time, I would like to give you some more ideas of what kind of games are popular. I have selected some, but I'm going to skip this right now and maybe show you only the games that has been successful on Playism. So Machinarium is, for example, one title. Why was it successful? Because of the unique art style. So it's very cute. It has very much a focus on the details. The puzzles are very, very unique, compelling. Not too difficult, but still, still manageable, but challenging as well. And it's a point-and-click adventure. So point-and-click adventures are doing very well in Japan. Such as, for example, Trauma as well. It's a point-and-click adventure, though it features more like an artsy style, and that's probably the unique point about it, why it was successful. One of the recent games that have been successful on Playism is Papers, Please, for example. It's not only popular in the West, but in Japan as well, because, again, probably the pixel art style and the graphics are something very different and compelling, though, and plus the gameplay where you play this immigration officer is something that's unique about it. So one more title maybe to let you know what kind of things could work is To the Moon. It's similar to visual novels, a very text-based, story-driven RPG. It has 90s aesthetic, very retro looking, and even though there's one point I would like to tell you about is, even though these kind of games may be successful in Japan, they have something that is unique and that appeal to the Japanese player communities. Still, you need to change something about the game. And my colleague Mark will talk about this real quick soon as well. But for example, To the Moon has a lot of references to the Western cultures. And if you would just take this over as it is, it probably wouldn't work. People wouldn't get it. So for example, there's a reference to Power Rangers, and nobody knows Power Rangers in Japan, so it won't work. It would lose the point where you laugh about the game, actually. So that's why we are trying to tweak the game in a way that it's still, that it doesn't lose its special point and that it can be successful. So to summarize that, so what do all these games have in common? Well, they have something special. They are indie games. They have a unique point, what you don't find in all the other big titles. They are some sort of culturalized. They are localized in a way that Japanese players will understand it. And actually, one point, and that's what I would like you to get as well, is just try to enter a new market. Try maybe to enter the Japanese market, because it's worth it, because players are actually craving about it. So for the last question, can actually these sort of indie games casually be successful? So can you actually reach not only people who enjoy playing indie games, but also who play normal games on the mobile? Well, that's a question my colleague Mark will answer.
Hello, everybody. I'm Mark Deromo. Nice to meet you. Can indie games be casually successful? Well, actually, we think it can. You have, of course, to provide some tweaks to the gameplay and to add elements that are inherent to casual gaming. But you can take one indie game and make it more casual. That's what we're currently working with Playism new project, porting the PC version of Unholy Heights to mobile. Unholy Heights will be released this year on Android and iOS. It's proven its potential already on PC platforms. It was released on Playism in February 2013. It sold up to over 40,000 copies by now. It ranked pretty well in various on various platforms, such as the Xbox Live Indie Game. It reached #1 in Japan in 2013. It was in the top 10 of Steam Indie ranking in October 2013, and it has also been nominated for the Game Connection Asia 2013. So yeah, it's a game that definitely has potential, but is it a good casual game? Well, yes and no. On the yes side, there's this cute Japanese art and this cute monster design, with a huge variety of monster types, a very refreshing art style. And all those monsters, they have different characteristics, which makes it very enjoyable to collect, which is a plus on the casual side. But for the not so casual side, Unholy Heights is actually a mix of genre. You have some simulation, some tower defense, and some RPG elements in there. Let's see. So on the simulation part, it's a very simple simulation. Your monsters have needs, and by fulfilling those needs, you get your monsters to move into your apartment. So pretty simple there. On the tower defense part, it's simple again. There's only three different classes of monsters, and those three different classes working as a kind of rock paper scissors model, like fight each other. It's pretty easy to get, but it has still some depth to the battle system, because you can choose how you take out your monster to battle. The controls are very simple. Like you click around and you can order your monster to do whatever you want them to do very quickly. And on the RPG side, it's still simple. You just satisfy your monsters, and then you can create couples of monsters which will have kids, and those kids will be stronger than the previous monster. So pretty simple evolution system. But it ends up being a core gamer experience, because all the three types of gameplay, they're tightly interconnected. You have to manage them all at the same time on the same screen. So besides this casual art style, we have a core gamer experience, which is why as well the PC version was successful on platforms which are primarily destined to core gamer. So we had to throw in some changes. How can we have the game be enjoyed by a wider casual player community? How can we casualize the game? How can we make the game successful on mobile? Well, those are questions we asked ourselves, and that we answered by learning from our Playism experience, from the titles that were successful on the Playism platform. We focus on retaining the strength of the indie game, which is mainly its originality. And we threw in some casual elements, and we tweaked the gameplay. We simplified the game. So the main reason why this is a core gamer experience was, as I said, this tightly interconnected gameplays. So to remedy to that, we just splitted them. Very simple. We splitted the simulation part and the tower defense part. Now those are managed on two different screens. Basically, this allows to simplify the gameplay a lot. Plus, it allows the player to focus on whichever parts he likes the most. Then, we added an unlimited gameplay. The PC version can actually be finished. You can finish the game and there's an ending. But for the sake of the mobile version, we just made it unlimited. You always have new quests, harder quests to complete. And that's why we also worked on the integrating a steady increasing difficulty curve for an unlimited amount of time. So that's it for the gameplay. We mostly fixed the problems inherent to the gameplay here. But how do we get our players to stay there? How do we keep them interested? Well, with a huge load of contents. For example, we will have lots of monsters on the release day, over 150 different monsters. We'll have like different skin packs, and those will of course be regularly updated, so that the players always have something fresh to play with. But it's not worth having something to play with if you don't have something to play for. So you want to play. We also increased the number of quests, and we will update them regularly. And we will throw in seasonal events, which have proven to keep the player thrilled to play the game. On the battle side, we simply kept the strength of the original game. It's not your usual tower defense, which is viewed from above. It's more of a 2D side-scrolling tower defense. And to this, we added one feature that you can find in many casual games and many successful casual games: social integration. For example, you will be able to take your friend's monster to battle with you. Now, the main change about the game is that we go from a pay-to-play PC version to a free-to-play mobile version. Now, of course, we need to monetize that. So, how did we do it? Well, we just rethought the game balance. Now your resources are, for example, your in-game resources will be more limited than before, which impacts on the apartment management simulation part. Your apartment will be harder to manage, harder to upgrade. So to balance this out a little, we added a temp house, which is basically your storage box for your for the monsters you can't use yet. And this limited resource also impact the evolution system. Now you have stronger requirements to evolve your monsters, to make them have kids. And those requirements will be even harder to fulfill since you have less resources than before. Well, to balance this out a little and to monetize the game again, we added a monster gacha, which has proven the gacha thing. It's proven very successful on many titles that usually have collectibles in the game. So in the end, we have this this infinite loop in the game. Manage your apartment, raise your monsters, clear quests, get new monster, manage apartment, and it goes on like this. And so we kept the originality and the strength of the indie game, and we threw in some elements that are inherent to casual gaming, and we tweaked those like core gamer gameplay parts to make them more casual. And we monetized at every step of the game. We monetized the game. You can buy skin packs for your apartment. You can buy resources to roll the gacha. You can buy consumable items. And you can buy the in-game currency or the action points to go to quests. So, yeah, can indie games be casually successful? Well, we certainly hope that Unholy Heights will prove it. But I think by taking this core gamer experience and by throwing those casual elements in there and by providing some tweaks to the gameplay, we made an experience that will prove enjoyable for most of the players.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Yeah, to just summarize everything, Mark already said it. So there are games that can be successful not only in Japan but also worldwide, and Unholy Heights is one of the examples we have been working on. It was successful as a PC game, and we are very sure that it's going to be successful on the mobile side as well. Though you may want to take some advice, at least that's what we think, is please don't forget your indie roots. So if you want to make a successful game, you are an indie developer, you have great ideas, you can create a good gameplay experience, people will enjoy it, but if you want to also be successful in other markets, for example, then you need to change something, you probably need to tweak things. Every market is different, every platform is different, so even for the mobile side, take the success stories from other games, take the things that can be successful and tweak your game in a way that it can work. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Robert and team. Is there any questions? Gentleman at the back. Let me just go there.
Hi, my name is Hilmi from KD University College.
Hi, nice to meet you.
I used to work with a boss that used to work in Japan.
Okay.
And I asked him one time, why is it that there aren't many PC Japanese games as opposed to westernized PC games? And his answer, and bear in mind this was in the 90s, was that the Japanese don't have a PC culture. They don't buy PC, so they don't actually play PC games, so they don't develop PC games. So given that you do need a development machine in the house to develop games in the house, has that changed in Japan now? Are they getting PC to develop games?
Honestly, I would say no. The culture is probably still the same. The doujin scene, for example, is maybe a little bit different, but most of the developers, since they don't grow up playing games on the PC, they don't even continue to develop there. So it hasn't been like that. Though recently we see a little change, and that's what we are actually trying to do. We try to support PC developers. We try to encourage them, hey, please create more games on the PC machine and distribute them online, not only in Japan but even globally, because the market in abroad is just wider, and there is potential for each game you create in Japan.
Thank you.
Any other questions? No? All right. Thank you,
Then,
Robert.
Yeah, thanks a lot.